Maybe you're wondering more about a day in the life of a dietitian in private practice versus the day in the life of a dietitian in clinical. In today's video, I'm going to break down clinical versus private practice and all that's in between for those of you that are building your practice on the side or you want to, and you want to see, what is it like? I'm Libby Rothschild, founder of Dietitian Boss. I created a proprietary system called the Dietitian Boss Method that walks you step by step from zero towards building a private practice of your dreams where you can work the amount of hours that you desire by running an online program that helps more people and you get to reach your financial goals. Now, the mission of Dietitian Boss is to create more private practice operators. So if you're enjoying this topic and anything related to what I post here on YouTube, make sure to hit subscribe because we release videos every Tuesday morning to inspire you to take action in your private practice. Now, if you're wondering what does a typical day look like for a dietitian, it depends on the dietitian. Now, there's a clinical route, a private practice route, and then there's the route of the dietitian who's working clinical, building their private practice. So there's a few different scenarios, and there are many more than those three I just described, but I'm going to break down those first three in today's video. And if you want to hear more scenarios, make sure to comment below so that I know what kind of videos you want to see in the future. When it comes to clinical, it's very traditional, whether you're working inpatient or outpatient, to have a set amount of patients that you're supposed to see per day. So when I worked in outpatient, it was 8. That was the golden number. Now I know in inpatient, you might be required to see north of 10 or 12, maybe even more. So it can depend on your team, the size of your hospital, etc. Now in long-term care, there were some different requirements as well, but more or less you'll have an expectation to see a certain amount of people depending on the census per day, with some variation depending on your team. So what that might mean is that you're spending a decent amount of time sitting and assessing the patients and then charting on notes. Now, if you're in an inpatient setting, you might be doing less of counseling, more of assessment, and more of notes. And if you're working in an outpatient, you might be doing marginally more counseling depending on the outpatient setting, and still a heavy amount of your time will be writing notes and perhaps working with the interdisciplinary team. Now, if you're a specialist, if you're doing ICU or you're working as a diabetes educator, that might depend a little bit. You might be working with the interdisciplinary team to a different capacity than you would have as a general entry-level dietitian. So there can be some variations, but at the end of the day, you're going to be working a shift where you are mostly doing assessment and note-taking with a little bit of time doing counseling. And for me, in my experience, I like counseling and I don't love charting and notes, and assessment is okay, but if it was up to me, I would have spent all my time doing counseling. And I felt like I didn't get to do enough counseling when I was in my clinical jobs, and I didn't like that so much. I wanted more FaceTime with the clients, and because their stage of change wasn't, they were in the contemplation stage of change, it was a little bit taxing on me to have to see so many patients that didn't want to see me. And I found that very challenging. I know everyone has their own unique experience in clinical, but my experience was that I wanted to feel like nutrition mattered more, and I wanted to work with people who were ready and motivated to also work with a dietitian, which is why I started to pursue private practice. If you're wondering what does a day look like for a dietitian who's working on private practice, our clients share that all the time on our Instagram. So you can see this reel from one of our clients, and she's sharing how she schedules her day. And I know so many of you are interested in what it looks like. It makes sense that you're interested because there's so much variation. So when you work in private practice, let's go 360 from clinical, you can set your own hours. You can delegate the documentation. So if you do have a team or you hire admin, you can get support when it comes to charting, or depending on what you're selling in your offer, you might not have a whole lot of assessments if you're running online programs or group programs. So there's a lot of factors that can affect the amount of admin and what that looks like in your unique practice. The cool part about creating your own private practice and a day in the life as a private practice dietitian is that you get to design it and you get to create the life that you want, and you get to work with the types of clients that you want to work with, and you get to really design from scratch. Maybe you don't like counseling, and so you want to create an online program that doesn't provide any coaching. Or maybe you want to hire coaches under you and they're providing the coaching and the counseling and you're doing mostly management. So there's so many different options and paths that you can take as a private practitioner. So what your day can look like in private practice for many of our clients is you will be spending time delivering your service or managing somebody else who's delivering your service. And delivering service means that you would be coaching the clients or you would be managing somebody else to coach the clients. Now, if you have a membership or you're running a program that doesn't involve a lot of coaching or facilitation, then you would be managing the content, right? So let's say that you run a membership program like Dietitian Boss alumni Ryan Kipping, whose video I'll link at the end. She might spend more time managing that the content she's creating and adding to her library is being created by her staff, and then she's overseeing or hiring someone under her to oversee that content is being released and her membership are being updated and they're made aware that there's new content in the membership. So delivering service can look different depending on what offer you're selling, but it's either you as the dietitian that's managing that, or you're actually doing that, or a combination of the two. And what's really fun about that is that you get to choose how you want that to look. So there's a lot of individualization and a lot of self-awareness based on your personality. We have several clients that don't like coaching or counseling, and so they're able to create an offer that supports their lifestyle, and they're really happy about that, because being aware of what your limitations and strengths are will make your work feel more aligned, but that will require that you are taking that time to reflect and grow your mindset. In a private practice, you are delivering your service, and if you have a team, you're managing staff, you're also doing some marketing. So whether you have a team or you're doing it yourself, you're going to be spending time promoting your services. You're also going to be looking at sales, spending some time with sales. Now that can be automated, or it could require that people who are interested are going to book a call and then have a sales call with you where you're talking to them about the benefits of your service and possibly enrolling them. And that's really fun. And for those of you who are scared and intimidated by what the sales and marketing process looks like, I've got a ton of videos to share that and break that down and demystify that process for you. But as a private practitioner, you're able to decide how you want that to look. Some of our clients don't do sales calls and they will sell from a sales page. And then we have other clients who will conduct sales calls and their team will help them conduct sales calls. So there's a lot of different pieces involved in the process. Now, the other advantage of private practice is that you can take off days that you want. You can set your own hours. You can choose the task that you want. You can choose the audience that you want to serve. You can choose how you want to market and promote yourself. You can choose the subject that you want to help people you want to support people with. So weight neutral dietitian, then you can support weight neutral practices, and you get to feel really aligned with the life that you're living by promoting and advocating for weight neutrality. Now, if you want to learn more about what does weight neutrality mean, I do have a video about the issues in dietetics, and so I want to link that now and at the end of today's video so that you can check that out next. Now back to private practitioners, where I had mentioned one of the cons of a day in the life of a clinical dietitian being that clinical dietitians spend a lot of time charting and documenting and seeing patients that don't usually want to see them for the most part. In private practice, you will have some time where you're required to do admin, but you can delegate it and you can automate it. And then you also, in addition, can decide what types of clients. So it's going to make that work feel really rewarding. Now, a downside of private practice, and it's, the reality is that when you own your own business, it's going to require different skill sets. You're going to have to be open to learning new things. You're going to have to be really diligent about your time management and setting boundaries, because there are going to be clients that you're going to come across that are going to want instant feedback, and they're going to want to talk to you outside of your business hours, and they're going to want to, maybe not pay the full amount that's due, or they're going to ask for a refund that isn't justified. And it's important for you to learn what kind of boundaries you want to create and contracts you want to enforce and how you want to run your business. And for many of our clients, that can feel really scary, which is understandable, because running a business and making the decisions about how you want to run your business is not something we were taught in school. And that's the benefit that my company can help show you here at Dietitian Boss. Now, we have several different offers depending on your stage of business and how many hours a week and your investment level that you can join, and you can create and launch an online program. And we can also walk you through step-by-step how to structure your business that fits for you. Now, the third option I want to mention is the option that I chose, and that was building my private practice while working a clinical job. What that can look like for me is making sure that you meet your quota. So you want to find out at your clinical job, what is the minimum amount of work that you need to do that's required for you to keep your job. Now, for me, that was 8 clients, 8 patients a day. So as long as I saw 8 patients a day, if I had a little bit of free time or leeway, that was when I was able to spend a little bit of time focusing on my private practice. And what I had done was I created courses. I was a curriculum developer. So in my free time, after I had met my quota for my day job, if and when I had some time, I would develop courses. Now, they were not online courses, they were in-person courses, but I still was able to build that leg of my private practice as a private practice consultant on the side. Now, what that looked like was a little bit of free time during my 9-to-5 job, and then a little bit of time outside of my 9-to-5 5 job at home. And you can allocate that by creating a simple schedule and deciding the scope. How many hours a week do I want to allocate outside of my 9 to 5, my clinical job, or maybe you're working in food service, or maybe you're still in your internship? How many hours outside do you want to allocate? Maybe that's 5, maybe it's 2, maybe it's 10, however many hours that you have, you want to fill that with tasks that are going to support launching your business, like creating an online course. And if you want to learn more about that, I have a whole video to walk you through step-by-step how to create an online course in under 90 minutes. So the pros of building your private practice while working a clinical job is that you don't have to completely quit your job without having your private practice off the ground, right? Because it's depending on your financial situation. If you are supporting yourself like I was, I didn't have the liberty to just quit my clinical job. I had to wait until I had some reserves, my private practice got off the ground enough for me to leave. So the benefit is that you are less stressed because you're working on 2 at the same time. So you're building on the side while you have your 9 to 5 job. And the con is that you need to learn time management. So for those of you that feel stressed, it's really about creating a schedule and making sure you can juggle both building a side business while already keeping that 9 to 5 job. It's just going to require some skill building. Now, keep in mind, if you're thinking about the day in the life of a clinical dietitian and a private practice dietitian, you also want to remember your why. So why I love being a dietitian. Now, I've explained this on other videos. I find dietetics a very interesting field. There's a lot of topics that span over what nutrition means, ranging from agriculture to food and nutrition to, the human body. There's just so much with policy that has to do with nutrition. It's such an all-encompassing topic, and I find it fascinating. And because it's interesting, I'm intrigued. I like really complex topics that I can break down. And so I find nutritional science to be very challenging, whether it be the dietary guidelines or any topic ranging from clinical nutrition or hot topics like fasting or the ketogenic diet. You will never be bored when you're studying and looking and learning about nutritional science. So I do think it's a fun topic and a fun category and a fun area of specialty. So just keep in mind that nutrition as a topic is interesting, but registered dietitians as a career path are not always respected. So although I love being a dietitian, I didn't love how I was treated in the clinical job because I didn't feel like the work of a dietitian mattered that much. And that really didn't, make me feel very good about all the time and money and energy I had spent, obtaining my master's degree and then sitting in for my registered dietitian exam and spending a lot of money and time and energy on school. So that motivated me to start my own private practice. So I love being a dietitian because the field of dietetics is interesting. And so if you're on this path, whether you're choosing to work a clinical job and build on the side, or you choose to go right into private practice, whatever this looks like for you, just keep in mind that thinking about your why. Why are you a dietitian? Why are you doing this? What's motivating you? That's always something that you want to go back to. This is also called your North Star, your compass, so to speak. Thinking about your why will help you have that crystallized direction. So on days where you feel challenged and frustrated and upset and you feel broke like I did working as a clinical dietitian making $55,000 a year, you can remember that North Star and say, this is an interesting topic. I enjoy being a dietitian because of X, Y, and Z, and I'm motivated to continue moving forward, right? And then again, think about why you're interested. I shared why I'm interested in dietetics, and you might have your own perspective. So thinking about what that means to you, whether you need to write an affirmation and paste it on the wall or journal it every day as you're embarking on your journey towards building your private practice, think about this because your consistency and your dedication to building your private practice is imperative if you want to start and grow a business. If you're wondering how many days a week does a dietitian work, that can depend on a lot of factors. If you're working a clinical 9 to 5, it's usually going to be a Monday through Friday job. If you're union, it might be like 9 to 5:30. If you're non-union, it might be 9 to 5. And if you're doing per diem, you could be working a few days a week. Or if you're doing a 9 to 5 and per diem, you could be working weekends. So it's going to depend, but typically a clinical job as a dietitian is a 9 to 5 position, unless if you're doing part-time or per diem. Now, if you're working as a private practitioner, you can decide. A lot of our clients will take Fridays off, or they'll only work 3 days a week or 2 days a week. And so that's something that you can decide and make that decision about the hours of operation and what you want your business structure to look like. The goal of most of our clients is not to work 40 hours a week. They want to work 20 hours a week or less while increasing their profits and achieving the revenue goals that they desire. Some of them want to create 6 figures, multi-6 figures, 7 figures, various different revenue goals. But what I see as a common thread is that desire for flexibility so that you can spend time with your family, so that you can enjoy your hobbies, so that you can enjoy your life. And so knowing that, you get to create, do you want Fridays off? Do you want Wednesdays off? Do you want to work 5-hour days? And so designing what those boundaries look like for your schedule is something that you get to choose when you decide to create your private practice. Now, I do want to mention it's important to explore a career in dietetics and think about all of the options, because I only mentioned a couple. There are so many more different pathways you can take, including food service, corporate, management, education. There's so many different avenues, sports nutrition. So I do encourage you to check out this video I've linked above about alternative career paths in dietetics. Now, of course, I advocate for private practice, as does my company Dietitian Boss, but that doesn't mean that there aren't other areas I haven't discussed, such as food service, that you could possibly enjoy or that you could start with as you're building your private practice on the side. And just to clarify the difference between a clinical dietitian and a registered dietitian, a registered dietitian could be anybody who's completed their undergraduate degree and sat in for the test to become a registered dietitian, where a clinical dietitian might have a master's degree in clinical, but they also work in a clinical position, right? So maybe they're working as a clinical dietitian, inpatient, outpatient, or long-term care. And not every dietitian is a clinical dietitian. There are dietitians that work in non-clinical jobs, such as corporate and food service. But keep in mind, according to the Academy of Nutrition and Dietetics Survey and Compensation Guide, about 40 to 60% of dietitians are in a clinical position. And that's a whole topic for a whole new video if you're interested. I have a lot of reasons why I think that is the case. Despite clinical being one of the lowest paying jobs as a dietitian, that is where most dietitians end up. So not every dietitian has a clinical background or goes into a clinical pathway. Not everybody, but most of them do, according to the research from the Academy of Nutrition and Dietetics Survey and Compensation Guide. Now, if you're wondering what does a clinical job description look like, that's a great question. And as you're exploring different alternative career paths, or if you're even juxtaposing private practice and clinical, now I've linked on screen, I've got a job description. Now you can easily just search clinical dietitian plus your zip code and look at job descriptions that are near you, wherever you might live in the world. This is something I found here local in New Jersey, and a lot of the job descriptions can have some similarities as far as your scope, assessments, documentation, etc. And you can see what's required of you as a dietitian in a clinical setting by looking at these job descriptions. And the last thing I want to mention as we're wrapping up this video about what a day in the life looks like and giving you a broad perspective, I do want to mention dietitians and happiness. Now, I have a whole video where I talked about this, so you can watch my next video that we'll put on screen here. Are dietitians happy is a question that I get asked a lot. And the answer is it depends, because we talked about so many different pathways. So because dietetics is such a low paying job, statistically speaking, midline salary of a dietitian is about $60,000, $63,000 a year, yet we're required to have our master's degree in 2024. And even before that mandate, we're required to sit in for a non-paid internship and complete our education, and the cost of our undergraduate degree in addition to our non-paid internship is pretty high, especially if you start to tack on the master's degree. So what we pay for school isn't necessarily paid back to us when we employ a clinical position where the pay is pretty low. So the happiness can depend on many factors. For those of you that are looking to make a salary that would be over $63,000 a year, I would say that that happiness would be, maybe downgraded. And then if you're looking at a position that doesn't respect you, or if you feel that you're stuck doing assessments and documentation all day, and that doesn't sound like your favorite idea of an ideal day, then perhaps your happiness will go down a couple notches as well. So this is an independent question you need to ask yourself. I suggest reverse engineering it. What would make you happy? And then build based on that. If it would make you happy to start your own business, but you also want to, dip your toes in the clinical setting, then you can do both. As I mentioned earlier, what my experience was, I found out the minimum amount of patients I needed to see per day. I actually exceeded that by 20%, gave me the flexibility to build on the side. I scoped out how many hours outside of that I would create after my 9-to-5 job was done. And then I built my practice at the point where I was able to quit and go full time. That's my story. And you can individualize how you want that to look for you. So the happiness comes from you deciding what would make you happy. There are plenty of dietitians that say, I want to be happy charting, doing documentation, and getting paid $50,000 a year. And if that makes you happy, that is your life and your prerogative. I am encouraging you to think about what makes you happy and then build based on what that outcome would look like. And if you want support in building the life that you want to live and the life that you've designed based on what your goals are, so that you can feel really satisfied as a practitioner and like you're helping more people and you're achieving the success that you want and you're creating the money that you deserve, I encourage you to check out our Rebellion membership. The link will be listed below in today's video.